Hello, everyone. I'm glad you could join us today. In this radio show, we're going to talk about the effects of drugs on our brain. It's fascinating and a little bit alarming how drugs can change not just our behavior, but can also have a deep and often devastating impact on how our brains can function. As well, we know the brain is the most intricate organ in our body, and these physioactive substances can really shake up things, influencing everything from our emotions to our thinking skills. Throughout our time together, we are going to take a closer look at how drugs impact various parts of the brain, the changes they can bring about, and the way addiction can alter the trajectory of someone's life. We are also excited to have a special guest who will share insights from his professional backgrounds. But first, let's explore what happens when the drugs enter in our body and start to affect our brain. So, first, we're going to know about the brain and his functions. The brain acts as a command center for our entire body. It's where we process our thoughts, feels, emotions, and make decisions, composed of trillion cells known as neurons. It's fascinating how these cells communicate with one another using electrical and chemical signals. The intricate connections between these neurons create circuits that govern everything we do, from the simple act of moving a finger to the complex task of learning a new language. Now, when we take a drug, it can disrupt the chemicals that our neurons rely on for communication, which are called neurotransmitters. These substances can throw off the natural balances of neurotransmitters, leading to powerful feelings of euphoria, relaxation, or even hallucinations. However, these changes can have lasting effects, impacting our ability to experience pleasure in a more natural way.
So let's talk about the different type of drugs and the effects in the brain. The cocaine raises brain dopamine levels, generating intense euphoria, but this faster high often causes an abrupt calm down, trapping users in a cycle to escape the discomfort. Over time, cocaine damages the neurons that produce dopamine, causing depression and making it impossible to feel pleasure without the drug. Marijuana taps into the brain's endocannabinoid system, which influences things like pain, mood, and memory. While many users love the relaxing effects, constant use can affect recent memory and slow down decision making. And sometimes it could even cause psychotic illness in those who are already sensitive. Now, the opioids. Heroin, morphine, etc. The opioids stick to parts of the brain that feel pain and pleasure, giving joy and well being. But if you use them too long, your body gets used to them and needs them, which damages the brain and causes problems with memory, decisions, and emotions.
Each drug has particular effects, but they all share the fact that they can alter the chemical balance of the brain. This not only affects mood, but can change our ability to think clearly and make responsible decisions.
Now, to really dig into this topic, we have the pleasure to welcoming Dr. Roberto Sanchez, a neurologist who specializes in how psychoactive substances affect the human brain. Thanks for being here, doctor.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about this very relevant topic.
Doctor, we've talked a little bit about how drugs affect brain chemistry. Could you explain a little bit more how drugs, especially those that cause addiction, can change the structure of the brain over a long term?
When someone uses drugs on a regular basis, the brain begins to adapt to high levels of neurotransmitter. For example, in the case of cocaine, opioids, and alcohol, the brain becomes dependent of this substance to experience feeling of well-being, which affects its natural reward system. This process can lead to change in neuronal connections, a phenomenon known as neural plasticity. However, in the context of addiction, these changes can cause the person to lose interest in activities they once enjoyed, such as eating or socializing. In addiction, they may face difficulties in making decisions and controlling their impulse due to effects that the substance have on the prefrontal area of the brain.
That sounds very serious. And how can addiction be treated from a neuroscientific point of view? Is it possible to reverse this damage?
There are various treatments aimed at restoring the brain's chemical balance. For instance, certain medical and physiological therapies can assist individuals in regaining control over neurotransmitter and release without the need for medication. However, it's important to note that in case of severe damage, recovery may not be possible. This highlights the importance of prevention and need to intervene as early as possible when someone starts showing signs of dependence.
Besides grasping how drugs impact brain chemistry, it's crucial to pinpoint the specific regions that get hit hardest by these substances. Our brain is made up of various areas, each serving it a unique purpose. When drugs make their way into our system, they primarily target the parts that govern our emotion, decision making, memory, and motivation. Now, let's take a closer look at which areas are the most susceptible.
The reward system. Drugs use significantly impacts the nucleus accumbens, which is a part of the brain related to pleasure and reward. When substances such as cocaine, heroin, or ecstasy are consumed, a large amount of dopamine, neurotransmitter that make us feel happy, is released. This can cause intense euphoria, but over time the brain begins to need higher doses to achieve that same feeling of pleasure. This phenomenon is what fuels the cycle of addiction. In the long term, drugs abuse can impair the brain's natural ability to enjoy pleasure without restoring the substance. This can result in decreases interest in healthy, everyday activities such as personal relationships, work, and exercise. The prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is the part of the brain responsible for decision making, impulse control, reasoning, and planning. Drugs, especially those that affect neurotransmitters such as dopamine, can alter this area of the brain. This can make it difficult for people to make rational decisions, as it is the ability to think long term or recognize the risks of their actions. Harm. When the prefrontal cortex is altered, a person may become more impulsive and less able to curb destructive behaviors, contributing to harmful decisions such as continue to use drugs despite negative consequences. Hippocampus. The hippocampus is the region of the brain responsible for memory and learning. When people use drugs, the hippocampus can be affected, especially with substances such as alcohol or marijuana, which alter the ability to store memories or learn new skills. Impairment. Hippocampal impairment can make it difficult to concentrate, learn new skills, and retain information. Those who abuse drugs often have trouble remembering recent events, which can impact both their professional and personal lives. The amygdala plays a crucial role in how we process our emotions, especially those related to fear and anxiety. When drugs are used, this area of the brain can be altered, often leading people to feel more intense or uncontrolled emotion. In addition, abuse of substances such as alcohol and stimulants such as cocaine and methamphetamine can trigger emotional problems including anxiety, depression, and even paranoia. When the amygdala is affected, emotion of fear or stress can intensify. This can contribute to chronic anxiety, mood disorders, and in some cases, the development of psychotic disorders. The cerebellum, meanwhile, is responsible for coordinating our movements and maintaining balance. Alcohol and sedative drugs can interfere with this area of the brain, causing lack of coordination and motor control problems. Damage to the cerebellum can make it difficult for a person to perform fine movements or even walk normally, affecting their ability to perform daily tasks and severe situations can result in fall and accident. Finally, the brainstem is a crucial part of the brain that is responsible for regulating vital functions as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressures. When drugs such as opioids and heroin are used, they can affect the brainstem, decreasing the body's ability to handle these essential functions. The damage it can cause is very serious. Affecting the brainstem can be extremely dangerous as it can lead to respiratory depression, putting the person's life at serious risk. Taking high doses of opioids can be fatal as it can cause breathing to stop completely.
This gives us a much clearer picture of how complex and serious the consequences of drugs abuse can be. It is a reminder of how crucial it is to prevent and seek help before the damage becomes irreversible.
That's right, the key is to intervene early. The earlier an addiction is addressed, then more likely it is to mitigate the long-term effects on the brain.
Today we have learned that drugs affect various areas of the brain, altering everything from our ability to think and make decisions to the control of our emotions and essential physical functions. These alterations not only affect the life of those who use drugs, but also have a significant impact on their environment. It is crucial to be aware of the short and long term effects to take care of our mental and physical health. And thank you all for joining us. If you or someone you know is facing a struggle with addiction, remember that help is always available. See you the next time. Bye.